Hello, and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We are here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. My name is John Ainsworth, and I'm joined today by Greg Hickman. He's the founder and CEO of AltAgency. Now, over the last 4 years, Greg and his team have transformed AltAgency from an automation consultancy, serving many well-known entrepreneurs and growth experts, into one of the top coaching and training companies for agencies looking to grow and scale by packaging their expertise, installing systems for growth, and leveraging automation to save time. And they have worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, ranging from Jay Baer, John Lee Dumas, Dan Martell, Betty Rocker, Nerd Fitness, Chris Ducker, and many other up-and-coming business leaders. They've taken over 150 agency owners through their frameworks and methodology. Now, today we're going to be covering how that model can work, whether you're an agency owner or whatever topic you cover. How can you package up your expertise? What mistakes do people make and how you can avoid them, and how to be able to scale more easily and faster. Now, before we start learning from Greg, I want to mention our sponsor. And today's sponsor is my company, Data Driven Marketing. And what we do is we help online course creators to 2x to 5x their revenue through building a badass funnel, through email marketing, and a system that we call strategic funnel optimization. So if you're interested to find out how much more you could be making from your existing audience, go to datadrivenmarketing.co/calculator, and we will figure it out for you and drop you an email with the details about it. So Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, man. So let's get into this. I want to talk about packaging up expertise. What is the first thing somebody should do? Because I think a lot of people, what they do is they start building the course first, but I know that's not what you recommend, right? So what would you recommend people do start with?
Yeah, I mean, I think before you get into the expertise, we need to first look at obviously who this course and this content and expertise is for. I don't know if this is something that your clients or audience run into, but I know for the people that we work with, oftentimes they've helped a lot of different people with a lot of different things. And so narrowing down like specifically who this expertise is for really, I think, informs like to what depth you need to go into when it comes to the actual content creation and the training and the curriculum. And so the more specific, I think, the better. I've very rarely found a case where you can like niche down too far, especially when you're getting started. So making sure that you're really clear on who that person is, so that every time you go to think about how your expertise is going to be applied to that person, it's going to be really, really practical for them. Because one of the big issues I think that people run into when they're too broad with who this is for is if they're teaching like a tactic or a methodology, there's not enough context as to why it's important to that person or how it would work in that person's use case, because it was delivered for too many people. It sometimes becomes like, in many ways, like unusable. And that's why I think you see a lot of people not finishing courses or having so many questions that they just like get overwhelmed and give up. So who is this expertise for, and what is the outcome that they're going to have by learning your method or whatever it is you're teaching them? So that's the starting point.
And I think that can't be overstated, the point you mentioned there at the end about what's the outcome? Like, what is it that's going to be different in their life after they've done this, or what's going to change? It's so easy, I think, for people to go, oh yeah, it's just this thing. So no, like really, what is it? Like really boiling down into it. Have you got any systems you use or questions you ask people to help them to get to the bottom of that, of like what that transformation is?
Yeah, so typically we go through an exercise where we have our clients look at the top 3 clients that they've ever worked with through different lenses. One, like, were you able to help them with the outcome that they came to you for? Did you enjoy working with them? Can they pay you? Is there, is there enough of them to scale to the desired goals that you have? And is that a market that's still growing and easy to find, which most markets, I'd say, like usually are. One classic example that I actually heard through someone else, not one of our clients, but the client was struggling, and lo and behold, the person that they serve, their ideal client, were newspapers. And so it's like they do advertising for newspapers. And so like that's back years ago, obviously, like it was that was growing. But now with the rise of digital, like physical newspapers isn't a market that's going to continue to be growing. So like they saw a very steady and consistent decrease in their income because the market was decreasing. And so we just want to make sure that like this isn't someone that is impossible to get to, that there are pockets of these people. Usually I haven't found too many markets where there isn't like an association or an organization or a club that has these people congregate. So I would be looking at some of those things. But I think one of the things that actually, when you look up, there's so many times I've done searches for like, how do you define an avatar? Like, who's the best avatar? And you see tons of people have training on this stuff. And one thing that I think often gets overlooked is like, do you like these people? The number of people that we've had come to us, they're like, oh, like we serve dentists. I was like, oh, interesting. Like, why? And they're like, well, because I went through a course and they told me that dentists have a lot of money. And so it's a really profitable niche. I was like, okay, but like, what happens when this gets really hard? Because it's going to, and you're not like motivated to truly help this person. Like, are you going to be able to push through, and have the adversity to like scale your business when you don't actually care about this person? And I actually experienced that myself in my own business. And so I think you need to ask yourself that too. Like, do you think about these people? Like, do you want to solve their problems? Like, would you want to be spending more time with them? And if that's the answer is yes, I think and all those other boxes are checked, I think you have a really good, a good opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's a beautiful crossover. There's like these three things that I think are fundamentally essential in order to do well. You have to be doing something that you like doing. You have to be good at it. And it has to be something that the market wants. And I have done work before where I loved doing it and I was great at it, and the market was not that interested, and that was awful. But I think any of the other ways around as well, right? You do something the market really wants and you can make money from it, and you're good at doing it. So you can make money from it and you hate it. It's like, maybe there's something where all three of them cross over, and it's really worth looking for.
Yeah, I think the people that have success in that example end up falling in love with a different piece of it. And so that's what gets them through the obstacle. But like, if you just truly don't care about those people or the art of building a business, I think you run into that. Another one I think is actually they have the ability to pay. I don't know what your stance is, but like we prefer starting with a premium price, and ideally to be able to charge as premium as possible versus, super low ticket. And so for the sake of the example, I'll just say premium being, above 2 to 3K, I think is like a really sweet spot versus like trying to sell a bunch of courses for $49 or something like that, because you'll get the same kind of people. Like, I'm really good at what I do, but I love serving stay-at-home moms who like don't have an income stream. And they're like, well, how are they going to pay you? Like, now you need to target maybe their spouse if they have one, or like where are they going to get the money to pay you? Or, they're like, I just want to work with the new businesses that are getting started. It's like, well, they also don't have money. So, the like understanding the economics behind who you're serving and can they afford to pay for this outcome as well. And again, as you narrow down on who that person is, I think your ability to charge a premium is a lot easier. For example, if you have a productivity expert and it's like, hey, here's how to be productive. Like, yeah, you could probably sell that for $100, but it's like, if you take that one level further, here's how SaaS sales reps can be more productive. Well, that's a lot more compelling for the right person. Their productivity probably leads to increased productivity. So now, like, you could probably charge more. Now it's like B2B outbound sales reps. It's like, that's even more specific. Like, you could probably charge a much higher premium because them being more productive, having these systems in place can yield an exponential return for them inside of their role. And so, going from productivity to productivity for B2B, SaaS outbound sales reps, like is a night and day difference. And I sometimes don't think people capture that, but that's the difference of being able to charge $100 to probably $5,000 and more for the exact same thing content wise, but just the ability to cater it is super important in my opinion.
Okay, so let's say someone's gone through this, they've figured out the right avatar, they've figured out what the transformation is.
Mhm.
What's the next step? Now is it time to start making it, or what should they go do next?
Yeah, so typically we have people map out kind of if they know the ultimate end goal and they know that starting point, we have them kind of like brain dump all of the things that they need to know, learn, and have and do in order to achieve that result. Those could be milestones, those could be tools that they might need to invest in, skills they need to acquire, knowledge that needs to be obtained. So simplify it. What do they need to know? What do they need to do? And what do they need to have? And so when I look at kind of, hey, there's 5 steps to go from here to this transformation that I'm promising. Okay, well, from step 1 to step 2, what do they need to know? What do they need to do? What do they need to have? Right? From step 2 to step 3, what do they need to know? What do they need to do? What do they need to have? And I like literally we list all of that stuff out. And then we need to ask ourselves, well, if they know all of these things, if they do all of these things and they have all the things that we're giving them to do the stuff, is there any reason that they wouldn't get from step 1 to step 2, 2 to 3, and so on and so forth? And that's usually where we start whittling out like a lot of the fat, if you will. I think a lot of people, I think if you're an expert and you know how to do stuff, I think we overlook the basics a lot. And it's like, oh, well, like that's just so basic. Like they either don't need to know that or they would already know that. And oftentimes that's not the case for your ideal client or customer. And so sometimes it's like removing some of those things because, oh, they actually don't need to do some of this to get from here to here. That was just me flexing my expertise because it's so obvious to me, but I've been doing it for 10 years. And so again, back to knowing who that person is, exactly where they're at is going to help you figure out, do they need to know all these things? Do they actually need to have all the things that you're suggesting and do all of the things? As an example, we had a client that teaches paid advertising. I think you mentioned earlier before we started recording, you have a client that does something like that for Google. Well, and so like he was showing me what he teaches his clients, and it was like, we're a 7-figure business and we're not even doing some of the things that he's doing. I'm like, man, that's really sophisticated and complex. Like, do they really need to do all of those things to get started? Or like, what's like the one campaign that everybody needs to have that like does most of the lifting? And like, it sometimes is as simple as that. Like if you're delivering all of these different campaigns, you mentioned funnels earlier, like if you're just getting started, you probably don't need the most complex funnel or segmentation or a lot of these things. You probably need like the minimum viable funnel. And like, that's a lot easier to get live quicker, which means your clients get results faster. So I really want to take them through that process of each step. So obviously reverse engineer, how many steps is it from start to finish? And then from step to step, what do they need to know? What do they need to do? What do they need to have? And that gives us like an outline. From there, I start selling. So I know what the outcome is. I can talk to it. I know the steps I'm going to take someone through. I like to get anywhere from 3 to 10 people to go through a small, like controlled experience first, designed to be sold as a pilot, a beta. I don't care what you call it, but the intent is that you're selling it as unpolished and raw, because that gives you the room to mess up and also to tweak it in real time to make sure it is what they actually want. And so if you have the outline and you can stay 1 to 2 weeks ahead of what you're teaching, like you're going to be making these small micro adjustments along the way. Like you'll have delivered week 1 and you'll see that some of them are hung up on stuff that you weren't anticipating, which means you could go back and clean that up or do like a follow-up training to add something, or maybe remove something that was overkill. And then, okay, well, if they got stuck here, maybe what I thought was step 2 isn't step 2, and I need to add something in between to move them forward. And I think that gives you the flexibility. And this is where I think before we started talking, the way in which you deliver the first version, I think is also critical, because I know we didn't define this when we got started, but like, what is a course business, right? Like I know people that sell courses where it's like, truly, I watch a few videos. I have no interaction with anybody. It's just, I consume to acquire some sort of knowledge or maybe a skill. But now more than ever, I think you have a lot of programs where there's coaching calls and sometimes even one-on-one. In our world, you see a lot of people add elements of done for you, where it's like kind of a hybrid between there's course material, there's accountability, there's support, there's implementation help. And so when you're taking that first group through, it always opens our clients' eyes into, well, what might I need to give them templates for, or what might I need to build an asset that they can utilize to make their life easier. I might even already have that asset. I just didn't even know that they would need it. Like, where do I need to interject and insert myself to provide customization, personalization, and tailor it to their needs? And I think that really starts to dictate, one, what future content needs to be created, and or what other support vehicles you might need to have as people are moving through the process. Now, some of your experts, like, it'll be very easy to have like one group coaching call and answer all those questions. But if your expertise gets into any sort of nuance and or technical things, and the people that are doing it are not as technical, you might need to consider, like, are they going to watch all of these walkthrough tutorials, or like, does there need to be a session where you like do it together, like, and it's like over the shoulder type stuff. And I find that in that first 3 to 10 group, taking them through just 1 week at a time, where you have the outline and you're preparing the content to be delivered live or semi-live, just a week to 2 weeks ahead of them, is almost always the best way to get the first wave of people through. It allows you to make money a lot quicker, get paid to really do the further research and development. If you're having trouble selling it, well, good thing you didn't spend a lot of time, building it, right? I think the most important piece that comes out of this really is just, I think we have a lot of assumptions, like how our ideal customer experiences or the problems that they have. And even in the preliminary sales conversations of this pilot, and then the preliminary delivery of it, you're going to hear the words that they use that you can just recycle back into your marketing. And the speed at which your own marketing and messaging will improve is going to be like next level than you constantly trying to say things based off of what you saw some other expert in your space saying, because you want to use their words. And I think once you get to serve them and have those conversations, like, they'll give you the copy, and you just need to capture it and then recycle it and reuse it. And that's where you're going to get those people that are like, oh my God, like, you're in my head. And that's obviously part of the sales process. But I think that, long-winded answer of like reverse engineering it, mapping it out, and then getting a few people in the door, usually at some sort of discount, is preferred.
Let's imagine you're thinking of delivering this for $3,000 a person when you have it live and working well. What kind of price would you tend to do as the first phase?
If you're anticipating like the retail value will be like the eventual price will be $3,000.
Yeah.
I'd probably I'd aim for at least 1,500. I look at the prices, and that's kind of arbitrary, but a few things on pricing, especially in the pilot, you have to weigh that it's not just, oh, this is a pilot and it's raw, so I automatically have to discount it. Yeah, you might want to discount it because you really just want people in the door. But if you're going to be going above and beyond, like, they're getting one-on-one support, like, for you to figure out and iron out the kinks, there's also value to that. And so, like, that needs to offset hey, this is unpolished, but because of that, I'm going to be working way closer with you than what the future people are going to get. And for that, that's valuable. And I can only work with so many people. So that also, scarcity, like, there's a price to that. And so I think that can often bring it back up. And so you need to kind of weigh, how much of you are you going to give? But that being said, all that aside, you want to, in my opinion, you want to maximize like the flow. Like, I don't want to add tons of barriers to getting people in the door. You want to add those restrictions and things later on. So I might not even be looking to personally profit off this pilot. I might just be looking to like make a little money and validate that someone will give me money for this thing. And the price, and sometimes, is almost irrelevant. It's just will someone exchange money? Now, if you're planning on selling it for 10 grand and you're selling it for 500, I don't necessarily believe that that's going to get you the true proper validation of will someone spend 10 if they're spending 5. Like if someone's spending 5, in what of my experience, they can and will spend 10 if you get the positioning right. But like 10 to 500, like, okay, like you might bring on people at 500 because it means nothing, but because it means nothing, they don't take it seriously. And now you have the course person who's not finishing or not participating. So you want to balance that out too, and make sure that you're kind of in the ballpark of like, is this going to still be desirable at this, future price point? One reason why I suggest everyone sell their pilot clients, whether it's 3, 10, 20, whatever, over the phone, because you can share a price and just hear how they respond. Like I remember when we launched our first pilot, I was selling it for, I was like, I'm going to get, 10, 20 people at $1,000. And the first 3 people like didn't blink an eye at 1,000. I was like, So then the next call I sold it for 2. And then I sold it again for 2. And then I sold it again for 2. And I was like, let me try it at 2,500. And so a couple of people bought in at like $3,000. And it was just as easy of a sale as the 1,000. And so like, I do think testing those things is important, and not displaying the price up front is an easy way to get that testing done.
Yeah, there's a look in someone's eyes when you've told them a price that's too low.
Yeah.
I remember in our program, I was going to sell it for 1,500 and I couldn't bring myself to do it on the first call. So I was going to say to this guy 1,500, and I said, it's 3,000, because I was just like, this is too good. I'm describing it to him. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this for 1,500. And so he bought, and that's cool. And the next few people bought. And then I had one guy I said the price to of $3,000, and I just saw him look almost confused. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Why are you doing that? But he said yes. And I said to him, I'm not going to change the price for you. But if I'd said $5,000, would you have bought? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. Right. From now on, it's going to be, and then it went up again to 5,800. But yeah.
Well, to circle back on that real fast too, though, like if you have that dialogue, like think about how important that was, right? Because now you get to say, go back and look at, and this is why it's such an iterative process and can happen so rapidly. But like that person who just said, oh, I'd pay $5,000 for this. You need to ask yourself, what's different about that person than the person who it was like $3,000? Are you crazy? Or 1,500? Are you crazy? Like, are they at different stages of business? Are they a different type of person? Is there revenue at different size? Do they have like, we need to understand the characteristics and the traits and the differences between those people, because we obviously want more of the people that are going to be willing to pay, the premium. So it's like to stop and say, well, what was different about that person is important, because that'll help you refine that ideal customer, avatar. But then on the flip side is, if you're recording your sales calls, which I highly recommend you do, you could go back and say, well, did I do something different on this call? Like, did I position it better? Did I ask better questions? How did I show up differently on this conversation versus when I talked to this other person? And you could literally put them side by side and listen. And you'll probably be like, oh yeah, I want more people that have at least one employee, because that's what this guy had. So like, okay, now you update your avatar. And that's going to get more specific in your messaging. We had a client, Eileen, who she's kind of like a fractional CMO. And she was like, yeah, Greg, like I have some clients that are getting results and I have some clients that aren't. I was like, well, what's the difference between the clients that are getting the results and the ones that aren't really moving forward? And she's like, well, all the ones getting the results have at least one team member on their marketing team. The ones that aren't, the owner is the marketer. And I was like, well, you're the fractional CMO. The business owner who's also the marketer is probably hoping that you're going to do some of this work. But the person who's the business owner who already has a junior person to do the work, they need you because you're the CMO. So go back and add that to your kind of requirements. And so she instantaneously went back and only started enrolling clients that had that person, like had someone, whether it's part-time or whatever, in the marketing role. And her messaging got more potent. The sales got easier, her marketing got easier. And then the people that actually were getting results from the course was going up because they had what they needed. When you think about know, do, have, but they need to have someone on their marketing team to do these strategies that I'm going to tell them to do. It's like being the dog walking coach and not requiring the person to have a dog. Like, that would be the equivalent, like letting anyone buy the course. It's like, well, hey, why are you not getting results? Oh, well, I haven't bought the dog yet. It's like, oh, okay, got it. I'm sitting here beating myself up thinking my course is horrible because you're not getting results, but you don't even have a dog yet for the dog walking course. It's like, that's kind of the equivalent, in my opinion.
I've just gone through and redone this analysis for us over the last couple of weeks because I don't know how to take time off over Christmas, it seems. And I found like a really distinct line of everybody above this point buys, and below that point, some people buy and some don't. It's like, well, look, I can talk to those guys at a lower level, but really should just be talking to the ones who are like this level and up, because all of them buy, they all get great results. It's all easy. For us, it's about email list size mostly. Like that's kind of the main thing for when we're dealing with people.
Yep.
So talk to me about, there's something that you mentioned, the opportunity vehicles. I wondered if you could explain to everybody what that is.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the fact that your audience is already building courses, I think their mindset's in the right place, but depending upon where their expertise is coming from, I think this is relevant. So imagine a triangle with different levels, or a ladder, whichever. And at the bottom, you have like an employee. As an employee, you're probably only ever going to make a certain amount of money per month. And there's a fixed ceiling on that. Now, maybe you could get to becoming a C-level person, or that could be, but you're still an employee of someone else's business. So you're probably going to make like 4 figures a month in most beginner roles, to maybe 5 figures a month, but like low 6-figure salary. And if you're doing 250 a year, as an employee, like you're probably in a pretty good role or like some level of management, honestly. So like there's only so high you can go. So a lot of people see the ceiling and they move up to being self-employed. This is where like, oh, like I'm a freelancer, like I'm a generalist, I'm doing all the things, right? But by doing that, you actually kind of raise the ceiling of opportunity that you can now earn more consistent, 5-figure months. You could probably go from like the $100,000 a year income as an employee to maybe 200, 250, 300,000 as a self-employed person. But if you stay generalist, then you kind of are going to be scattered because there's just too much operational drag. So we go up one other layer, and it's where we kind of start offloading some of the business to be more of a formalized business, a service business, if you will. This could be an agency. This could be, a freelancer with a team. This could be a coach with, the next coach, but you have some help, and that will raise the ceiling on how much you can actually earn in a given year. In some cases, up to 7 figures, possibly if you're too service oriented, those margins might be low. Then the next level up is what I'm like referring to as like the modern day media service business. And this is where I think like course creators really start to show up, is like, hey, I've been doing the thing, I have the expertise. Let me start packaging that into some form of media, videos, training, worksheets, whatever, so that I can build it once and sell it twice, 3 times, infinite times, and not have to start over from scratch with every client I get, right? Work hard once and sell it over and over and over again. And that unlocks, like, you can get to 7-figure months just by being in that opportunity vehicle. The next one is being an owner, which, owner of that business, and then an investor at even a higher level where like you own multiple of those, right? And so what shocked me was like the people, I think the key thing here is that I want people to take away is, if you want to go up this ladder, it's not about you becoming more of an expert in the thing you're an expert in. Meaning, like, say you're teaching web design or UI UX, you becoming a better designer isn't going to help your business grow, which hurts a lot of people's ego, right? Like, but I'm a designer. It's like, well, okay, fine. But if you want to stay at that opportunity level, then yeah, you can continue to be the designer, but you need to like become a business owner. And that means you need to acquire business skills that aren't about, fonts and typography and, the latest design practices. It's about how do you get someone else to be equally as good of a designer as you? How do you learn how to lead? How do you learn how to hire? How do you learn how to build systems, market yourself? And like, that's a different skill set that I think you need to start learning and acquiring in order to to position yourself to move up that ladder. And it's like the business of online courses. It's not, I have an online course. It's, I run an online course business. Sounds similar, but I think fundamentally they are actually different, because you need to understand how to run a business. And there's economics to run a profitable course business versus just, hey, I just have this course for $500. I sell it here and there, and there's no way to consistently sell it or to grow it. It's just, it still ends up being the feast or famine that a lot of service providers run into. So the key to growth is moving up that ladder. And the vehicle to do that is to start acquiring business skills.
Nice. Okay. So that's amazing. So we've got how to figure out about where to get, like what's actually going to be included, who your customer avatar is. We've got how to figure out what the outcome is for those guys. And also with the avatar, like who should you be focusing on? Someone that you like, as well as can afford to pay you and you can help. Pre-selling this to maybe 3 to 10 people before you get started, delivering that first phase, and then we've thought through about the mindset as well in terms of how can people think about this in the right way so that they're actually taking the right kind of actions. If people have loved this and they're like, I need more Greg in my life, I want to learn more about this kind of model for doing this, where can they go?
Yeah, I'd say check out my YouTube channel, which could be easily accessed through gregsvideos.com. It'll take you right to my YouTube channel. I release a new video, long form video every Thursday, breaking down a lot of the frameworks and the systems that we've used and allowed us to grow our business to 7 figures, as well as many of our clients.
Nice, cool. If you found this video useful, or this interview, if you're listening to the podcast and you want to get future episodes, then please hit subscribe wherever you've listened. And thanks so much for listening. And Greg, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
John, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.